Hey, welcome everybody back to the 1% Baseball Podcast. This is our 14th podcast, and it's one that's been highly requested. Many parents, many coaches have reached out, DM'd, left messages about, hey, we want to talk to an ump. And not only did we get you an ump, we got you a very good umpire with a lengthy baseball resume. But before we get into that, Garret, Sean, how you doing?
Doing good.
Doing good. Happy to be back.
Summertime. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot. It's raining in the sun.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's bad. I think it's 104, 103 yesterday.
The 16s don't like practicing at 12 o'clock, I tell you that. It's midday. It gets hot out there,
Yeah.
but it's been good.
One of our parents, Sanchez's dad, wanted to go do some long toss at 5:15. I said, "Yo, go ahead, man. We'll do when the sun goes down."
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Mr. Wes Whitehead here in the middle. We will get a little more into him and his background here in a second. But I think Sean has a quote of the day for us.
Let's get to it. Quote of the day. What we do not understand, we have no right to judge. Pretty solid.
Woo! Right.
Pretty solid.
Speaking of umping, right? For non-umping, great quote. And so, without further ado, Mr. Whitehead, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Garret and how he got you to come on.
Okay, well, some of you may know me. If not, I'm Wes Whitehead. I've been around the game quite a long time. I've known Garret. My son actually plays youth baseball, and he's been playing since, I don't know, the machine pitch days at the Helotes Little League. And throughout that journey, I've gone to Garret for some, hitting lessons. It's made a tremendous difference in my son's ability, and it's worked out. So, and we cycle off and on with that whenever our schedules collaborate and meet. So that's been a good thing. But as far as my story goes, it started way back when I'd changed careers. I'd moved down Dallas to San Antonio, wound up getting married. My son was born. He was like a year old. I was working at Morgan Stanley as a financial advisor. This was 2007, 2008 time frame.
Yeah.
It was rocking along pretty good, meeting all the performance requirements, and then the 2008 crash hit, and it was like, hey man, Wes, what are your numbers this month? And I don't know, it was pretty tough. Well, we need to get them going for the next quarter,
Right.
And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and at that time I had made some other relationships in that business and wound up leaving Morgan Stanley and working for a smaller independent firm that actually put financial advisors in bank branches. So it went from a salary job and commission to 100% commission in a bank branch.
Yeah.
And when you go home and you tell your wife that, hey, you made $200 this month, and you got a 1-year-old, in diapers, and she's chugging away at her job, and you need to find something else to do. So, we were living in an apartment over, off the 281 area. I'm sitting there, and it's December.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'm chewing on wasabi peas, drinking cheap beer, watching the football bowl games before the actually good ones go on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, I could be a football official, right? I'd play football and basketball and baseball growing up, and well, the football season's over. I'm like, man, I love baseball. That's coming up, and so I looked all over the place. Like, how do I get involved in this? So I found the contact information to one of the TASO chapters in San Antonio at the time, and they were doing a training, and so we went in there. You went through their training.
And TASO is the
Texas Association of Sports Officials.
Awesome.
And so that's separate of the UIL. And so in that San Antonio area, they have a couple of different chapters. There's like a New Braunfels chapter. There's a San Antonio chapter. There may be like a Brush Country chapter. And just full disclosure, I've been out of the umpiring game since my son was old enough to start the travel ball thing. So I've been chasing I've been chasing now. He's 14 now. A baseball athlete on the diamond for the last 5 or 6 years. But as far as the tenure and the experience, I started in that 09 era, and I think my last year was the 2016, 2017. So about 7, 8 years.
You did some college baseball, right?
Hundreds of ball games. Yeah, so we started out in the high school. You go through their training program. They'll assign you a handful of games. They're going to be JV baseball games. You're like, oh, I played baseball. I know everything there is to know about it. And when you step on from the playing side of the foul lines to the other side of the foul lines, it changes. It's really a whole new animal. And so you've got to learn the rules of the game. You've got to learn the mechanics of it being in the right place at the right time, and then the third and the most difficult part to teach is the judgment portion. I mean, you can learn all the rules, and you can learn where to be in the right mechanics, but the judgment is hard to teach. It's really hard to teach, and you get a lot of that just by the experience and how many ball games and talking to veteran umpires and things of that nature. And those first few years or those first few hundred baseball games, there could be some pretty contentious and tough situations because you're calling baseball that's not very good baseball.
Right.
There's a lot of things happening when baseball's not very good. When you get to the higher levels of baseball, the baseball game, for the most part, it's a cleaner game.
Yeah, it's a little bit more boring. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, guys can throw and catch. Hot flies, for the most part, are not an issue. Things of that nature. But when they're younger, you see a lot of different things, and so. I encourage anybody that would get involved with that to get involved with the chapter, go through the training, and then you collaborate with your fellow officials, and you can talk about situations, but that judgment piece and being able to apply the rules of the game and what happened and things of that nature. That's the most.
I thought one of the cool. Because like you said, his son Garland used to train with me, and we got to spend a lot of time. We were training. I guess it was last spring, pretty consistent, like every week, and it was during kind of that first year that I had the now 14s. That was a new team. That was a brand new team. They'd been with us in the fall, but it's not a lot of games, so we got to see a little bit more. And I never coached a team that young, so it was always like high school guys.
Right.
So when I brought them on, like a little bit different of a beast. Like not really. It's just more so like the game is just like I said. It's a little bit not as clean, and so. I would always be there's a bunch of things that we would always talk about, and one of the things that Wes always told me was at the beginning of every season, especially when he was still coaching, he would always go back through and like read the handbook, the ones that these are the ones that are here.
Well, these actually I'll give you these guys at the end of the year. These are so for the high school, there's three baseball rule books. There's the NCAA, there's the P book, the Pro, the Big Book, and then there's the Federation, the NFHS. That's the high school book. And there's some slight variations between the three books, but I think the biggest differences between the two, like you'll see in the high school, it's more geared towards safety of the players.
Right.
And it's more geared towards how can we get the players to be able to play more. So the substitution rules may be a little bit different. The batter DH rules are a little different. The slide rules and the contact rules are a little different. It's a safer game. And then that progresses into the NCAA where they start to open it up a little bit. And then the Major League book. And then for all you old heads out there, the old Major League games that, hey, we're sliding in the second, cleating the guy.
Yeah.
Running the catcher over.
We're bulldozing the catcher. Those days are over. They
long gone.
And so they're ratcheting it down as well. And so there's some slight variations, but in the end of that, and I'll leave you guys with the most up to date high school book.
Yeah.
So for your youth guys that are going into high school, I suggest you get into the book, man.
Yeah.
And so for me, like when I was doing it, especially early on, it was before the season started, I'd get in the rule book and I'd read it cover to cover. I read the high school book cover to cover, and I'd read the college book cover to cover. And then you go and you get your assignments and you go do the games. And when something crazy happened in a game, you managed it the best you could. You got through it. But for me to be able to progress in it is when I got home, I'm digging into that rule book.
Well,
so
there's 12,386,344 possible plays in every baseball game.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and you're having to wade through that.
Yeah, and I've probably seen
12 million.
Yeah,
12 million.
exactly.
Well, there was the example, like Wes was with us and we were training one day before practice after a weekend of playing. We always train on like Mondays or Tuesdays. And so we were out there in Burn-In. They got there and like I already knew Wes umpired. And so like I had this story built up. Like I was telling him about the fucking game that happened, like talking about like a play that happened, right? And I'm pissed because this play basically like almost ended the game. Like we had an opportunity to like close the game out right there. It was like last inning. It was like 1 or 2 outs. Dude that just got on the base paths like in this play was the tying run. And it was a play where like ball was hit, overthrow happened, right? But it was one of those ones where like tips off the first baseman's glove, rolls kind of towards the fence, coach is screaming, go, go, go. And then the kid turns back around and comes to first base, right? So, like, running down the line, he clears the bag, runs through it, right? And, like, makes a turn into the field of play, right? And then comes back in towards the base path, like, towards the bag. And our guy picks up the ball, tags him out. And, like, everybody's going, like, bang, like, got him. I'm like, safe. And I flip a switch, dude. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, what? How in the world is this guy safe? I was like, he turned back inside the line. He goes, no, that's my call. I go, what are you talking about? I said, all my life growing up, they always told us if you're going back to first base, you have to go, like, peel right and come back to the bag. I was like, the kid peeled left. The coach is screaming, go, go, go. He wanted to make a move to second, and he came back to the bag. He goes, he didn't make an attempt. I go, what are you talking about? I was like, that's an attempt. I said, I told him straight up, I said, you don't know what you're doing. Right? He goes, go read the rule book.
Umpires love that. They love that. Right?
He didn't toss me. I didn't get tossed, okay? But I said, you don't know what you're doing. I said, go read the rule book. And he goes, no, you go read the rule book, right? So game ended. We ended up losing that game. Tuesday comes, and I told Wes about it. And he looked it up in the rule book on the spot. He said the umpire was right. And I was like, really?
Like, nice.
Because it's 100% a judgment call. And this is what he told me. So from now on, like, I won't say anything about that rule because he taught it to me like he was like, it is 100% a judgment call to the guy that's in the field, the umpire in the field. Like, like you told me, you said like if a kid looks to second base with his head and he's inside the line, he would say that's his judgment call of him making the move to second. But others, they're looking for like
solid move. And I think to add on to
because
that,
I think it happened again whenever we were playing.
It did, and I think
happened.
that's the toughest part, like for us as coaches, is like understanding like the judgment piece of it, right? Even the parents and the players is like understanding like a different guy. Like, okay, like was he making an attempt? Well, maybe to me he was. Well, obviously, like the coach wants to win the game, so he's going to fight for his guys, but really trying to understand, like you said, like the judgment piece is a hard one to understand and even get right most of the time. Yeah. And that's something I think we could all agree to disagree that it's very tough. Someone's going to get pissed off either way about it.
Well, I mean, I guess talk about that because there's rules and there's judgment. I mean, how does that work? Like,
well, so I'm going to preface by this. And it happens all the time. I have coaches, you have players ask you, you have parents.
Yeah.
Hey, I had this situation or that situation. So I'm going to preface by this. If I don't see it with my own lamps,
you can't. Really
let's just say that information can change a little bit and can be biased towards the person making the say. So you saw it. You saw the play happen and develop. I never saw the play. I'm just hearing this secondhand information from you. You're saying, "Hey, this is what happened, and to me, this is what it did." And maybe, you went out there and had gotten in an argument with an official because you felt strongly about that. I didn't see that, so I can't tell. You may have been right, Garret.
Yep.
All I can tell you in a situation like that, whether it's a parent or a coach or something that comes and tells me, I say, "Look." From what I remember about this rule, and I don't remember all of the rules. I've been out of the game a little bit, but this is the rule. And so I guess in that particular case, the word is, hey, he's got to make an attempt towards second base. And then that's kind of where I was telling you guys about, as the more experience the official gets, and the more that they collaborate with their own officials and veteran guys, and they're developing what they, their own, how they would judge a situation like that. And they're all a little different, but it's, so I guess to kind of answer your question is it takes some experience, but you gotta know the rule first, and then you gotta know how to apply the rule in each given situation, and that can be the tricky part.
Yeah. And I think the big piece too that I've found, like if a situation like happens like that when I'm coaching the 13s, the 16s, whatever it is like if I go out there and ask like, well, this is what I had. That usually the umpires that like are really good in my experience, they'll explain their side of why they decided to make the call that they made.
Yeah.
Then you can see it from their angle a little bit and be like, okay, well, maybe that makes a little more sense rather than just saying, well, that's my call. He's safe. Go back to the dugout.
Yeah, and it could be a long day, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be a long day, and he's really not. He don't want to listen anymore to your garbage.
Yeah. Well, I've learned too. Like at my point when I'm out there is like, dude, if the guy, if I know it's a judgment call, I'm not even going to argue. Like I'm not even going to go out there. I'm just like, all right, well, play the game. Well, because it's a waste of time. Because like we talk a lot about tempo, like. You see a lot of umpires, especially in the higher levels now, like the game tempo is important. We look at it more so from a playing side. Like, we want the tempo in our dugout. Like, we think about it as like hurry up offense in terms of football. Like, everything we do, other than when we're on offense in baseball, we want up tempo. I want the ball back to the pitcher. I want the tempo of the game moving fast. Like, I want the kid that's behind the plate. Like, don't go chasing baseballs. Like, stay squatted down, get the ball from the umpire. Like, let's go. We want this moving fast because I want to put pressure on teams, right? And so for me, it's like I'm not going to go out there and argue the call and like take the tempo out of our dugout. I'm not going to take the tempo out of the game because I want to make a scene or like if it's a judgment call, it's a judgment call. And like parents may say, like, why is he going to say something? Well, because you don't know what you're looking at.
Well,
you don't know what you're looking at.
The next piece too is especially if you've got a later game, the guy's been out there all damn day and it's his 6th, 7th game of the day, like you said, like he's tired, like he doesn't, he don't want to listen to you, right? So it's like
mashed potatoes.
The more you go out there and question, the more pissed he's gonna get, right? So I've kind of learned over the last couple of years of like, if there is a judgment call that like either I don't agree with or I have a question about, like, hey, like why did you make that call? Then I'll go ask him between innings because just like you said, like. One, it gives him a chance to cool down, and we can have a little bit more of like a discussion about it and say, hey, like for future reference on this play, like just so I can relay this to the guys so their knowledge of the game starts to get greater, right? Like we can have a little more dialogue about it rather than me like approaching him in like an asshole manner, so to speak.
And then so there's a couple of different situations when it comes to judgment calls, and it comes to, maybe the importance of the games and so on and so forth. And I'll tell you, all of the umpires that I've come across, they put time and effort and energy to being the best umpire they can be. They don't care which one of you guys wins. They're not trying to. They want to do the best job that they can. They love baseball, or they wouldn't be there. And then they want to grab that. They get their check and go on like anybody else. But when I was on the coaching side of things, I didn't always have the best behavior because, you said, we talked about a little bit earlier, you emulate some of the things that you've had in the past, and maybe you would emulate, hey, I saw this big league coach doing this to this umpire, or I saw this college coach, I hear you guys.
Your name behind the mound. I actually hit with Philip, so we always heard that story when he blew up in the Mississippi Braves game and covered the plate up and like grabbed the rosin bag and crawled behind the mound and like chucked it like a grenade. Landed right at the umpire's feet and like grabbed second base. He's like walking to the dugout and like double birds of people on the way out.
And so I'll say this, you do that because you think it's part of the pageantry of the sport. Hey, this is what you're supposed to do when you're a coach. You're supposed to argue these calls. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, in summer baseball and lower level baseball and all of the stuff where the stakes aren't high and no one's going to lose their job, over it, or no one's going to make the the super regionals, it's not worth it.
Yeah, no.
Leave it alone. let's not get wrapped up on that. And you know, so there's a couple of reasons why they do it. So I got to where the only time that I would go out on a judgment call is if we had a judgment call and he'd call it, and I was okay with whatever, whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent. It is what it is. If it's relatively close or whatever, you know, I don't want egregious, obviously.
Yeah.
And even if it was egregious, I wouldn't waste my time going out there to do the arguing. I may chirp a little bit, you know, but if it was egregious, but if it was anywhere in the zip code, I wouldn't waste my time with it.
Yeah.
Now then, some of the higher level games where you got, you know, whether it's varsity baseball or college or whatever, and maybe there's been a couple of close plays and it didn't go their way. Maybe a coach comes out there and goes, man, I'm going to try to rattle this guy a little bit and see if I can't get the next call.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that, but we don't need to be doing that in youth baseball. We don't need to be doing that in summer baseball. It's really your plastic ring at the end of the day or whatever.
Especially you only got an hour 40, so many times out there arguing, it's cutting down.
You're cutting down on their swings, dude. I mean, you want the guys at the plate swinging. You're going out there arguing for 10 minutes, they're not swinging.
Yeah.
You know?
And what's like when you see an instance like the one that happened, I can't remember if it was in Houston or I think it was in Austin, where the coach comes out and shoves the ref. You know, that, and then, or the other instance where the younger umpire cancels the game, right? Because parents and everybody's chirping.
Yeah.
Like, when you see that as a seasoned, you know, D1 former like, what goes through your mind and what's your perspective from it? Because you've been the parent and the coach, and then what's your perspective from the ump side? Like, what advice do you have?
Well, so in a lot of those scenarios, and I mean, it shouldn't get to that point, you know, and there can't be contact between the officials, and it absolutely is. I mean, it's a detriment to the, you know, it's a black eye. It's a sore subject with the sport. You know, I know that as parents and as coaches, you know, it's an emotional game and we're competitive and we want to win, you know, and it seems like that win at all costs is just, you know, starting at earlier and earlier ages. It's not. You know, and I've gotten caught up in some of that myself with my son, me as being a coach. Sure. It's not worth it. But we can't have contact with the thing. And as far as the younger officials, and especially at some of the lower levels in the Little League, the parents it's too much. And you got to think that guy may not have any baseball training at all. Mm-hmm. And he's somebody that was running the league said, hey, come out here and call balls and strikes, safes and outs for this. You know, you make you a quick, you know, $30-$40 or whatever. I don't know what it is. You know, it's and be done with it. And then he goes out there and it's like, oh, you know, you're horrible. I can't believe you're even, you know, just the god awfulest things. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he's not coming back, man. Mm-hmm. You know,
which we need.
And you need those. And I can remember when I had started. You know, I'm doing, and it's funny. It's probably one of your old coaches. I was at Johnson. I had a JV assignment, I think, over at Judson, and it was cold. And Kelly Parker was the guy running the JV squad. Hey, you might have even been on the team, but it was cold. Yeah. And I was trying to be too perfect on the balls and strikes, and the ball comes in, and I don't know. I thought it was off the plate, but it's probably not. Ball, and I mean, he's like, Kelly's like, it's cold, Wes. This kid, he didn't care one way or the other, but you know, come on. But as things went on, it get better. But to circle it to land the plane in your deal, we can't have it. It's not. You know, it's not good for the game. There's an official shortage. I mean. A lot of you may have even gone to some games now where there's only one guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's
there's one kid. Or the tournament director has to get there because they're short on umpires.
Yeah. 60-year-old kid.
Short on umpires, and you only got one guy, and he's calling it from behind the mound. So, you know,
it's going to make the cost of their season go up from a parent's perspective because, dude, like when we went to Kerrville, they were charging $75 from both. And in some of the games, the guy would be taking $150 because he's by himself. And it's just like, whatever, we can talk about inflation if we want to, but really, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to like all these people, right? So all these people are not.
So let's say, So let's have some perspective about that, and then also, I was doing a college showcase tournament at UTSA for like 18s and high school kids. And the tournament director at the time, he's like, this is behind the scenes stuff. He's like, do not let this tournament run behind schedule.
Yeah.
Do not.
Yeah. And
if it does, then before the next one, hey, we're getting a call from our scheduler. And he's saying, hey, guys, how far are you behind? Get it caught up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're being put in a situation to, hey, man, let's get the thing going. So it ain't, when little Johnny's up at the plate, I don't ever want to be egregious. But, you don't know the situation that guy's in.
There's context that
There's a lot of context that you may or may not see. And, we don't want the guy that hey, bounced the curveball in the dirt and it's strike three, or whatever, or he calls it in the other batter's box that far, strike three, but you don't want the egregious, but let's live within the margin. And then, I think the number one cause for ejections, or it was at the time, was arguing balls and strikes. And that seems to be the most, obvious thing because it just happens the most in the game.
So what's your advice to coaches listening? Are you going as an ump? Are you going to the coach and saying, hey, control your dugout, control your crowd? Are you, as an umpire, and maybe it's advice for umpires too, are you chirping back to the parents? Or how are you handling that situation? Like, what's the best practice?
Well, so they teach you you can't have rabbit ears. The parents, they're irrelevant. You need to tune all that out. Yeah. I mean, they have absolutely
no clue.
No, and they can say, well, I was all state in high school, or I went to D1 college, or whatever. As a player,
close it up.
As a player, even at the high levels, as a player, you don't have that other perspective as a coach, the strategy piece or the management of the game, which is the umpire piece.
Yeah.
You have no context in that, so it's probably best to tune the parents out if possible. Yeah. And so the only time that you would have that you would get on a parents or a heckler or something is if it was, like too far. Curse words, all of the, I was doing it, the prayer, so on and so forth. We'd have the JV, you go to a high school baseball game, maybe the JV guys are watching and they're heckling the batter, and it's all fine and dandy until they cross the line. Hey, you can't call the batter that while he's batting, dude. Hey, coach, you need to control your team. Or, the high school games and the upper level games will have an administrator. You gotta remove him from the stands. He's gone. Yeah. And as far as the legality part of it, it's been upgraded from a Class C misdemeanor to a Class B.
Really?
Yeah. So the fine is like $2,000. I don't know. There may be some.
I had no idea that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, it should probably be moved higher. I mean, and the leash should probably be shortened. And it's because if you don't, you're just
letting do whatever.
You're just letting it.
You said win at all costs, and as a parent, it's easy for me to get caught up sometimes too. Just the emotion of it.
Yeah.
But that win at all costs, I think you have to accept losing at almost at all costs too, because it's experience for the kids to maybe have a quote unquote bad ump or a different ump, because it teaches them, I think, to adjust to the game. It teaches maybe some of these coaches who are growing, like Garret and Sean, to adjust to the game. And while maybe you don't want to get too far, off the beaten path,
right?
There's got to be some adjustment. There's styles to that, and it's part of the pageantry, like you said. It makes baseball special. It makes it what it is.
Yeah, baseball's special for a lot of different reasons. But as far as the officiating part of it, that after my first year, that next year, I did do football, and I played a lot more football than I did baseball growing up. But the difference is, baseball officiating is the accountability factor is way higher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, you don't need me to call the one right down the middle. Right. You don't need me to go, hey, the ball's hit to the shortstop. The guy at first base stepped on 3 steps later. Oh, he's out. The game is taking care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to baseball, foot, bag, everything, it all came together.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got? This half of the stands thinks he's safe. This half of the stands thinks he's out. You know,
Yeah.
you can't swallow the whistle in that situation. You know, you can't not. Oh, I was going to grab and throw my flag, but I think I'll. In baseball, you're forced to make that decision
On the dot.
Yeah, on the dot, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent.
I called
talk
one game. I called one game as an umpire when I worked with
Oh
Scott.
God, I don't even want to know.
When I worked with Scott on the sliders, because the same type of thing. It was one of those big tournaments at McAllister, and I was like 15, 16 at the time. He's like, hey, I need you to go be the field umpire for this game. Guys running behind. Like, we need to get this game started. Go. It was just what we were talking about a second ago, right? So, literally, I shit you not. First pitch of the game. First pitch of the game. Guy goes into the 6th hole for a backhand. This is like 11U baseball. Backhands it, right? Throws it. It is a bang, bang, bang. I've never umpired in my life.
Flip a coin.
Bang, bang. No, I go like this. I go, bang. Stands went crazy. Both of them. They all were like going nuts. I was getting chewed out. Scott came and pulled me out of there. He's like, go, drag, go drag a field or something. Yeah, but I think my thing for like in terms of like with umpires, like we've had some bad ones. Like, dude, we've had some like, and I'm not saying that as like, oh, they did it bad. Like, just in even like, I want respect from a coaching perspective, right? Like, just respect me. I'm not gonna disrespect you. We're gonna talk and we're gonna like get it right. But like, don't big league me. You know, like we had one guy like my biggest pet peeve from an umpire perspective. And again, just like you said, like some of these guys are trying to run on time. But if I pay you, because if you think about it, you get 3 games guaranteed, and I'm paying $1,000 for an entry fee. I'm basically paying $333 per game. So if I'm going to pay that much money for my guys to play, we are going to be ready to play the game. So if you're trying to start me 25, 30 minutes early before our time, because we have routine. We have shit that we do that's like from the moment we put our cleats on and we start pregame, there is a full routine. Do not fucking start me early. And I will not let that happen. We got into it the first game on Saturday or Sunday with the 13s when we were there, whatever. This is good. We're doing in and out, and I've got like 15 minutes on the watch, and they're trying to get the home plate meeting going. And I'm like, no. Like, home plate meeting takes 2 minutes. Like, no. And I just kept hitting fungo. Got done. And we had like 8 minutes left at that time. I go to the home plate meeting. They already banged it. The other team took the field because they were the home team. And I was like, oh shit. Play gets made, and I go to like jump the field and like run out to the umpire. He said, "You're not allowed to come out here. You weren't there. I was the only guy there at that time." He goes, "You're not allowed to come out here." No, you were there. It was a 12 game. Remember when I went out there and the guy just kept, dude, he's like jumping me because I didn't go to the home plate meeting. I was like, "Are you serious right now?" I was like, "Yeah, I get it, but like, dude, like we're not gonna not get cheated. You know what I mean? We're gonna get our time. We're gonna get what we deserve because we paid for it." But that's my biggest thing. The only time that I will ever like talk about something like that and get frustrated with the umpire is that happening, or if guys are getting like very, very, very bad balls and strikes called on them, right? Because I mean, for us, like, dude, we try to train that. We try to train plate discipline.
The problem that like we've run into, it happened even like when I was growing up and playing, and even with some of our older guys, is it's like some of these guys that go back there, like it's like anything else. You can see it. Yeah. You can see it. You can, based on the relationship, just like you said, like we want to have that relationship where it's like, hey man, like I'm not arguing with you, but I just want to know. I want to know what your thought process is, just so I can tell these guys for future reference of the game. But it's like you can tell when people out there are just to make a quick buck versus like people that actually want to be out there and like grow the game, right? So it's like the one that pisses me off is, especially like you were saying, when we have 15 minutes till, if we're supposed to start at 3:30 is when our scheduled game time is, and you're trying to start us at 3:15, like, that shit don't fly. Yeah. It's a little bit different. I can understand it a little bit more if, like, we're running behind and they're like, hey, look, like, we got to get this ship rolling. But, like, when we're early
you're supposed to be there at 3:30. It's 4 o'clock, and can we
exactly? And right into Adams are like,
but on that same token, and I've seen this before, and it's kind of the other side of the thing. Maybe you're supposed to be 3:30. It's now 4. You're not there yet, but what the heck are y'all doing? Are you going through your routine right now while we're behind? Or are you waiting to go through your routine oh, after that game's finished, okay,
Yeah.
guys, let's go through
No,
the
it's
routine.
exactly.
And so
yeah.
there's some that do that, and you're like, hey, man, y'all should have been going through your routine.
when you the hour before you got here.
Yeah,
That's what
you
we've done.
if you were ready at 3:30, you should be ready by 4.
Yeah. No, see,
And so
that's
so
one-
that situation's a little different than go, hey, I know you're supposed to be at 3:30, but let's get started at
Absolutely.
at 3:15.
Yeah.
yeah
And
that's
so,
the
like,
one that, that's
to
the one
go back to what you were saying on the balls and strikes, like what irritates me is like the people that like you can tell they're not even trying to like even put forth effort to make like the right call, but it's like at the end of the day, like it's not me and him that are getting screwed over. It's not the umpires, it's the players. Right. So like we had there's a kid on our 17U team, and he came in last summer, and we're like, why do you keep swinging at this pitch? Every single at bat, like you're swinging at balls at your neck. Like why do you do that? And so we chewed his ass for a couple weeks or whatever, and finally he's like I got it called so much in high school. He's like it's the top of the zone. Like you honestly think it's the top of the zone? He's like we got it called so much, and I'm like, man, like that's what's tough.
Yeah.
That's what's tough is like we don't want to hinder like their development and their understanding of like play discipline and stuff like that. And like that's where to me like it gets super wishy washy.
The most impressive one is when I've only had one umpire do this, and I was like, damn, that's pretty solid. Because I will tell my guys anything that guy tells me that's a rule that he wants to bring up that maybe I haven't mentioned, but at the home plate meeting, if he makes a comment on like the way he's going to run the game, I will tell them.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had one umpire that came in there. It was last Houston tournament we were in Sunday with the 14s, game 1. We go out there and the umpire's like, hey, just to let you know, I'm going to be calling one ball off the plate on both sides.
Perfect.
Well, our guys know that because we have the 1 through 7. So I walk back to I say, hey, 0 to 8 is going to be a strike. If it's a ball ball off the plate on either edge, like you got to be ready to hit. Yeah. Whereas the other guy, like that's not a strike, and in their head they're disciplined enough in our training to be like, I'm looking for 1 to 7.
Yeah.
And then they get ball 8 and they take it, and the problem is that just like you said, they don't get rewarded for doing the game right because that is a ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then they get. That's honestly when you start maybe seeing some of these guys and shit. Kids are so fragile nowadays, like. Dude, like ball 8, and they take that, and now they're punishing themselves. They're going back to they're punishing themselves, and it's like, dude, you did the right thing, but like, how you can't control that guy.
Yeah.
So I mean that's what it is it's like, it's tough because again like, and it all goes back to the adjustability piece that we always talk about in training and being adaptable, right? Like we may like in a perfect world like 1 through 7 is gonna be a strike, ball 0, ball 8 is gonna get called a ball, but if you know like. By the second inning, hey, like he's expanding, right? It's late in the day, like he's expanding, it's consistent, like we got to adjust and make something happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
and it's like that at all levels too. It's not just this level.
Yeah, no, that is true. But here, this is something that I didn't know. I mean, I went even into the high school thing, and then I went to Houston for the college training, and they had Clint Fagan come down, and he was AAA umpire at the time, and he was getting called up, and he was doing major league stuff and coming, going back and forth between to the bigs and AAA. And I don't know, whatever, I hadn't kept up with it since then. But one time during our training, they were talking about the balls and strikes thing, and talking about how we needed to call more strikes. And he said, guys, that Quest Tech box, that little electronic box that you see on television that says this is what the strike zone is, that is 1 inch off the edge of the plate on both sides. Mm-hmm. So your home plate is a 17-inch wide plate. That box is 19 inches. Mm-hmm. Okay, and as soon as he said that, I had an epiphany. I was like, I've been looking at this all wrong. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to be perfect on the edge of the plate. And then we talked about the baseball training on how many baseballs, fit across. Number 10's in the box, right? 9 is close. So, like, if it's not touching that line, the baseball's not touching that line, I'm not too far. We don't want to call balls in the other box. Yeah. But I've got a Major League Baseball umpire and teams, they're working within that margin of error is 1 inch. Yep. And that's pretty dang tight.
Yeah.
Right? I wouldn't advocate for anybody at the youth level operating on a 1-inch margin. So for all you guys out there going, oh, it's where it crosses the plate, you got to get wide on that or this or that. You're saying you're gonna create problems for yourself. Yeah. So every time that I went up a level in baseball, when I went from high school to started calling college, or I went from D3 college to doing D1, and I made it more of hey, this is an important game, this is a big thing, and I made the moment bigger for me. I got myself into trouble.
Yep.
When I thought, I've got to, we're D1 or we're D3 college, and it's Chapman out of California and Trinity, and they're both ranked, and the lights are on, and the stands are packed, and I've got to be perfect. It was one of the worst games I ever had in my life.
Putting yourself in a tight spot.
You're putting yourself in a tight spot. So when I got, when I saw that from the training piece, and it's like, hey, they're working with a 1-inch margin of error. Yeah. Can a high school kid or even below it, can they get 2 inches?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then so you go back to that point. If you got a 3-inch wide baseball and there's 2 baseballs will fit between the plate and the foul of the batter's box line. Mm-hmm. As long as I got daylight between the batter's box line, you should be good.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be.
Oh, it don't have to.
You don't have to be perfect, right?
And I think,
but you don't want the egregious. You don't want the it was ball 12 and it's 0-2 count and he's yanking the bat out of my kid's hand.
I think it's a really good point, especially for all the guys that we train that are listening, because we'll talk a lot, and I've been talking a lot with like the guys that we train about this too. It's like, in reality, what's the difference between ball 7 to ball 8, ball 6 to ball 7? Like, I mean, we talk a lot about approach and having an approach, but like, you got to free yourself up a little bit, right? Yeah. Now, again, like you said, if it's ball 6 right on the corner versus ball 12, like that's a little bit different story.
Yeah.
But when we're talking, like you said, like a 1-inch margin, like you got to free yourself up a little bit more and trust the training that we do.
Yeah, but that's what it always goes back to Matt Lockett, UTRGV, when we were in Chicago this year.
Absolutely.
When the kid comes back to the umpire, he's like, those 2 are off. That one's off the plate, the one that he rung up on. And he goes, this is him talking in his speech that he was getting. And he turns around to his player and goes, well, what about the other 2 that were right down the dick? Like, it's true. You know what I mean? Like, hey, your parents, everybody, your kid wants to complain.
Like, no one wants to complain about the kid for taking the fastball right down the middle. Yeah. They want to complain about the one that you got run up on that's right off the plate when you put yourself in a position to not even have a competitive at bat.
And there may be some couple of scenarios. Your 0-2 count's different than your 3-2 count, or your 2-2 count. So, if you're an umpire that's gonna, you got a guy 0-2 and then you call ball 10 off the plate and you rip the bat out of his hand, well, you're not gonna move up very far, right? But on the same token, it's it goes the other direction, and so. I don't know. It gets tough, but what I can say is like you got to stop arguing the balls and strikes, and especially if you're sitting 10 rows up.
It's not like you have a good angle to look at it.
Get over it.
It's always crazy when you go like that. When we went to the ALCS this past year, we're sitting in the stands and we are in section 405, like way left center, right, or way
barely
left
even see the plate from there,
and like people around us are going like, oh, boo, and I'm like, I'm fucking looking at him like, what are you, dude, you can't even see it. Like, it hit his glove, that's a strike. Like, what are we talking about? Like, it gets bad. Like,
and Wes, I think, like you said a couple of things that I just want to point out that I think are critical. So the context for parents, number one, is even at the major leagues, they're working with some margin.
They have a margin of error
that
they get to work with.
And the advice, so that's context for parents, right? There's margins of error. For umpires, I would say, especially at the lower levels,
right,
is you're out of the major leagues, bro.
Yeah,
so
you don't have to be have to be perfect.
Yeah, you don't have to be perfect.
And so, like I said, as I was going through the system and going up the different levels of ball, the more exact that I tried to be with the strike zone, the more I found myself in trouble. Yeah. And so when I went to the other thing, I just flipped it and go, instead of working off the edge of the plate, I'm just, for me, the level of baseball that I was calling, I'm not calling the the 8-year-old at the Little League park, would I grab a
It's
strike?
It's got to be 1 to 7.
Yeah.
1 to 7 in the box.
Would
If
I-
it's
would I-
something above his letters, it's a ball.
Yeah, would I grab a strike over there on a kid like that? Probably. When the game's 22-1, I'm probably going to grab one in the box at that level if I had to do it. But I'm talking about level. I didn't want to call anything in the other batter's box, but so kind of have some context about it for the younger umpires. You don't have to be super perfect. But we don't want egregious.
Yeah.
And then also it's all about the situation. An 0-2 count situation is different than 2-2.
Yep.
Or 3-2. Yep. So understand what you're doing.
Yep.
And you won't have that understanding until you actually have the experience and you get to run through it.
So 2 more things I want to I want us to touch on before we wrap up. And you've got time, so don't feel rushed. But number one is, what is the umpiring community saying about the shortage of umps or the lack of folks going into umpiring or whatever? And then number 2, how do you feel about some of the automation of umpiring?
Those are fantastic questions.
You got the floor here, guys.
On the shortage piece, it's putting a lot of stress on the guys. What I'll tell you is that we need to recruit more guys that want to do it. And I'm telling you, from going through it, it is a fantastic place to be. The camaraderie is fantastic. The range of people that you'll get in an organized platform with their training officials is great. You're going to have, from folks like me that were trying to start and run a financial services business, to engineers and attorneys that love baseball, they want to do it and do a good job, to maybe the folks in life that they weren't dealt the hand that you were dealt, and they've got a car payment to make.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have all walks of folks in that. They're going to be great people. I still am in regular contact with my old umpire acquaintances. You go to a high school playoff games, you'll see them work in the field. You go to UTSA game. One of my buddies was working the Stanford UTSA game.
Nice.
And I was, talking to him about some of the things that happened in that game. That would what a ball game, right?
Good game. We were there.
And so you see those. So for the shortage piece, we just need to get on the recruitment train, get more guys in the system, get the training, get them to learn and love the game, and build that camaraderie within those different organizations. Now the second question, the robo umpire, the technology. I have mixed feelings about it because it's kind of like, well, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind the robo umpire thing. I think baseball's come a long ways with the replay scenario. I think for the most part it's worked out pretty well on the basis. Hey, was he safe or out? And now we're think about that. What we've been talking about. We're 1,000 frames a second. I don't know. You're seeing that. What are you talking about? You got to you got to TiVo this deal, go frame by frame, and you still having a hard time going, is it right or wrong?
Yeah.
So have some levity whenever we don't have the technology, the replays, and so on and so forth. Sometimes there's bigger things in life that don't matter. How do we deal with it and move on from it? But when it comes to the strike zone, I think they've got a pretty good handle on the east and west part. The ball 0 through 10. They've got that figured out. The problem I think that the robo umpires having is the up and down because, Aaron Judge steps in there. His north and south's different than Altuve's.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
But they got
on a
tossed for
foot.
that this year.
the east and west part's 19 inches. We got the little Quest set box. They've got that done. The north and south they may have some problems with. And so if they ever get it figured out, I guess it's okay. It's not on the umpire anymore. It's on the machine. So, hey, you can't throw a fit, dude. You should have swung.
You gonna take a bat to that machine or what? When you get
or the pitcher. Hey, well, dude, you didn't put it in the box. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go sit down. Go back to the bullpen. Go back to doing your long time. I don't know,
Try
whatever it
again.
is.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is the part that you'll lose. So there's it's almost poetic, the relationship between the pitcher and the catcher.
Absolutely.
And the work that some of these catchers are doing to be able to frame that ball in the way that they do it, and they put and
You
you
get lazy.
It,
Get lazy.
it can really separate the difference in a ball game. Is you have a highly skilled catcher with a high motor that pays a lot of attention to that stuff. So for example, now you're seeing a lot of the guys working under the zone and then catching it and coming up that way instead of pushing balls that are on the low part of the zone out of the zone. It's bringing it up to the zone. So the human eye, the guy behind you, his picture's a little different. So maybe you're creating some balls that may not have been strikes. Maybe you're turning them into strikes instead of the other way around. Umpires, when they're standing behind the catcher, they're having reference points. They'll use the catcher's knees as reference points. They'll use, belt buckles, elbows, the head of the catcher for, hey, this is kind of my north and south. If he's catching it above his head, we're balling that.
Yeah.
Well, so if you're on coach, if you got a big guy and it's some skill, maybe you get another ball up there. I don't know, but you lose some of that. Maybe they drop the inside knee and they take a reference point away from an umpire. So now the umpire, he can't. He's got this little window, but he was using the catcher knee for a reference point, and a skilled catcher that maybe he's gone to some training, he's learned that, hey, if I take this one away, maybe I can turn a low inside pitch into a strike. Sure. And so when you get the electron, you're going to lose that.
100%. I agree. I don't like it.
I think you lose the running game too. Like I never
Well,
thought about that because now, never ever is a catcher going to have to worry about like you can literally just fucking stand there, and catch the ball, throw it away.
And see, that's what, from my perspective, I think that's an excellent point you just brought up. Because I caught all through high school, all growing up, and caught in college as well. Right. And so that was honestly one of my favorite things about playing and catching was like the mental challenge of like having that relationship with the umpire.
Yeah.
Right. You build that relationship. It's like, hey, Scott, whatever his name is, like, hey, why didn't you call that when I had this on this such and such ball? He's like, oh, well, you caught it like shit. Yeah. You reached out of your body. All right, cool. Well, I'll make sure I set up here to give you a better presentation. He's like, all right, perfect. And then you're just always going back and forth. Not so much, like you said, egregious, but it's just like, because I tell all of our catchers, like, you're doing everything you can for the guy on the mound to get him in the zone. Yeah. Right? So it's like the more you can have that relationship with him, and like you said, it's poetic and it's pure and it's something that it's awesome. Yeah, so you lose that whenever you start getting umpires and stuff. And the next piece too is like from the selfish piece of catching, like you start to learn so much more about the game by doing that. Yeah. You understand the strike zone, and there's so much more information that you can get when you're competent back there and you understand like what you're trying to do, and you start to lose all that when you're not forced to like be locked into the game a little bit more other than just sitting there and catching it.
We'll never have to worry about it at the younger levels because I don't think they'll ever have the money.
When you get your ace or your horse on the mound and he's in rhythm with the catcher and the catcher's working, the umpire's more comfortable. His ball strike, get right, miss error is going to be when the umpire's comfortable and has a good clean picture. He's going to do a better job. Yeah. The game's going to move better, and the guy behind making the judgment, he'll fade off into being invisible like he's supposed to be. Exactly. And it'll all turn into just the guys going at it, right? And that's
pure
what you
competition.
Want. But I think if they go to the robotic strike zone, you're gonna lose a little piece there. It's kind of like you lost some of the, Greg Max was obviously an awesome pitcher. We're not throwing. If you see some of the old videos before they did the Quest Tech thing, he probably got some calls that were not on the plate, but when we put the box up there and go, hey, you got to be in here or your dog water, now umpires are forced to be there, and then now you're going to go from, well, that's not good enough for us. We got to be we can't miss not one pitch. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a red light and a green light, and now you're going to get into a situation where you're going to lose a piece of the game. I'm sure it'll probably work. Obviously, I mean, baseball's bigger than all of this. It will happen. Technology is great. The advancements, I kind of look forward to it, but from the history of the piece, and as you see it progress, some of the stuff that you may lose from a thing like that it can be sad.
Yeah,
if you know what you're looking at and you get to watch those pieces and you you get a dedicated, pitcher catcher combo that are working on their craft. I mean, and if you actually know what you're looking at, you're like that. That was a beautiful thing.
And I think to a
saw.
certain level too, you lose like that competitive spirit. Like it's great when you see like a competitive coach in a competitive game with a competitive umpire, and they're going head to head. Right, he may not get tossed, but he's going out there questioning the call, and like they're bickering back and forth to a certain level, and like it's pure and it's exciting to see, right? And so like losing that would suck to a certain degree.
To a certain extent, and I think I'll it's part of the pageantry of it, and there is some purity about it. When you get down to the younger levels, there needs to be less of it because the stakes aren't high. Nobody's getting paid. Nobody's job's on the line. Your 10-year-old's not getting.
You ain't getting signed today.
So we need to let all that go, and then kind of back to that UTSA Stanford game. I think there was a close play at first base, and the first base coach got tossed. And one of my
that was a wow.
That was a wow. We'll see you Monday.
one of my buddy of mine was on the field doing the game, and after it happened, and he could so. Typically, if you throw anybody from the staff out, whether it's a player, an assistant coach, or whatever, you're going to have to talk to the head guy. And used to, you could go out on the field. Well, now they've got the COVID rule where they're doing it on the side, and that was the first time I had seen it. And so I was looking forward to the part or the pageantry piece where they're like, okay, I wonder how this conversation is going to go. And well, now you got Hallmark. He goes to the foul line, and then. The umpire, he comes up and they have a discussion and they turn around and I'm like, well,
that was boring.
You're like, well, I wanted more. Like, get your adrenaline going.
It was also because it was the last side of the inning too, though, right? Or was that?
I don't.
I'm pretty sure it was 2 hours because it was on I remember that. That was.
Well, I think too, it's like high stake game like that. And
they're trying to
win. They're trying to win, and it's like when you get the competitive people. He's like, hey, dude, I had to throw you out because. You can't say that shit, but nice job winning. So it's like,
and then when I talked to my umpire friend after the end of it, he goes, "I love it. I love the cooler because there's too much of it." So on the umpires, they don't want the confrontation, and rightfully so because it's gotten to a point where the confrontation is just like every little thing.
Yeah.
We're trying to get advantage on every little thing, and it's like, come on, man. Let's play the game.
Be better.
Well, with that being said, before we wrap up, and then we have a raffle to do too. But what if folks want to get into umpiring, or if folks want to advance in their umpiring career, what do they need to do?
I would suggest that you'd start with one of those chapters in San Antonio. So it's TAS. So I think you could look up. The one that I was associated with was New Braunfels Umpires Association. I think the secretary of the chapter was Joe Lopez, and he was responsible for getting the books and coordinating the trainings and so on and so forth. And maybe we can leave his number in the link or something like that. You can contact him. You can go on the website, sign up, and this is for coaches. This is for administrators. This is for guys that are men and women that want to become sports officials. If you need to get in contact with an umpire organization, go through that. Go through that link.
Yeah, and for all the umpires listening, if you're ever in the fall, if you're doing a South Texas Tribe 14U, we love you guys. Man, we appreciate you.
The other team hates you.
Just talk to me. All right,
that's good. I'll have Wes do it. We're going to do the raffle.
What's the raffle for?
This is for the 16 and 17 summer. Parents put together a fundraiser.
So a little raffle draw.
We're raffling off 3.
Yeah, it's 3. Yeah,
3 $500 Visa gift cards.
Whoa.
Yeah. We're gonna have West draw it, so there's no
bias.
No bias in this. All right, you're gonna pick 3. Ready?
First one, Wes Whitehead. That's perfect. Thanks for putting my name in.
You're welcome.
Now that's Tracy McCollum.
Tracy McCollum.
Nice.
Very nice.
Congrats,
Nice.
Tracy.
Ticket number 232, Tracy McCollum.
There we go.
Very good.
Number 2, Wes Whitehead again.
Yeah.
Raul Cortez.
Very nice.
Ticket number 324.
There you go.
Ticket number 3, Garrett Acker.
Yes. We're going to the bank today.
Go back the other way. Ticket number 230. It looks like Kevin McKidd. How do you? What is that? McKittis?
Mickets. I think it's Mickets.
Mickets.
Kevin Mickets. Ticket number 230.
Thank you guys for sponsoring the boys. I know that they wanted to do this and just help out the teams for the summertime. So we appreciate everybody that was a part of it.
And Wes, we hope to have you on again.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yeah,
All right,
a lot of fun.
enjoyed it.
All right, I'll take care. Thanks.
Thank you.